So now that I've completed the Alabasta Saga, what are my thoughts and opinions on it? Yo, what's good? It's your boy Dru Reviews, and heavy spoilers for the Alabasta Saga. You have been warned. Finally finished my second watch through of the Alabasta Saga, and what do I think of this saga overall? Well, let's talk about the good first. I wasn't expecting this saga to be as short as it was. I'm guessing compared to a lot of One Piece arcs in the future, this arc is really short in comparison to a lot of those arcs. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some moments which felt a bit sluggish, but overall, I was quite impressed with the pacing of this arc. Of course, the main Alabasta arc where they go to Alabasta is my favorite of this entire saga. I love the way Alabasta is designed. I love some of the desert drawings and the sunsets. This is the arc where I felt like the One Piece art style really got enhanced. I really noticed the backgrounds were less faded and there was more detail in like the buildings and detail in the sky, and the colors were nice. I also felt like the animation had some fluidity in some of the fights, particularly when Luffy and Zoro were fighting, as well as Sanji. I noticed this fluidity especially when Sanji was fighting Bon Clay. That was the first time so far in this story where I noticed fluid movements. Let's talk about the characters. This is the saga where we get introduced to Tony Chopper, and my gosh, do you feel sorry for this boy? Being abandoned by his reindeer family because he had a blue nose, then he ate the human fruit and was kicked out. I mean, that scene of his father shoving him out of the pack, a hard scene to watch. The dude couldn't fit anywhere in society. He couldn't go to the human world because he looked like a monster, and he couldn't go back to his reindeer pack because he didn't belong there. He was too much of a human. Imagine what that does to a person and their mentality, dude. And even his relationship with Dr. Hiruluk was really heartwarming. How he didn't look at him like a monster, he acknowledged Chopper's existence, and I like the bonds they had. But oh my gosh, the scene that really broke my heart watching it was when we found out that Dr. Hiruluk is dying and he's not feeling well, and Chopper reads into a medical book and he notices that if he can get this mushroom, then maybe the doctor would feel better. And the only reason why he went out to get that mushroom was because of the skull crossbones on the side of the book. But we find out from the lady doctor that, oh my gosh, Chopper did a bad thing and he didn't even realize because Dr. Hiruluk didn't even tell him that the mushroom was poisonous. Oh my gosh, the look that lady doctor gave Chopper was so heartbreaking. I was just gutted when I first watched this scene. And I like how Chopper learns how to become more brave. The battle he had in Alabasta, really showing his bravery and coming out of his shell, was really nice to watch. Vivi, she started off as a quote-unquote villain, part of this mysterious organization, but then we find out that she just sort of infiltrated that organization as a larger scheme, as she is the princess of Alabasta. I just like her bonds with the Straw Hats. Just like a lot of people, she's quite unsure with them, particularly with Luffy, with how laid back and goofy he can sometimes be, but as time goes on, she grows an attachment to them. Speaking of Luffy, I forgot to mention that I think Luffy also had some sort of character growth, particularly with Vivi. When they first go to Dru Island, when Nami is feeling a bit sick, you have a bunch of people who are very hostile, the civilians of Dru Island, and Luffy is thinking of just punching his way through just to find the doctor, but Vivi is like, what type of pirate king are you gonna be if all you're gonna do is just fight your way to get what you want? Sometimes you gotta be humble and to make people want to help you when things are serious. I mean, they were in a pretty serious situation with Nami, and I like how Luffy learned that from Vivi. He bowed his head and even took off his straw hat. Really wholesome moments there, dude. Vivi also learns to trust the Straw Hats in trying to take down Crocodile because they want to go to the rebel army to stop them first, but Luffy's like, let's not do that, let's just go to Crocodile and stop the situation there, and they have that little fight. I remember the first time I watched this episode where Luffy punches Vivi to knock some sense out of her. I was a bit mixed on that. Luffy, you can't hit a pretty princess, dude, what are you doing? But over time, I have come to appreciate that scene for what it is, and it made Vivi realize that all she wanted to do was protect her friend friends. In a way, that was kind of an insult to her friends. She needs to have faith in them so they can do what they can do to save and help her in any way they can. The main plot for the Alabasta arc involving Crocodile and the rebel army was definitely the most interesting part of it. Throughout the entire arc, you're just so confused as to why the rebel army are acting this way. What is Crocodile's true intentions? Why is he seen as this hero warlord in the view of the public, but behind the scenes he is Mr. Zero and plotting to overtake Alabasta? I mean, what he does in this arc, my gosh, he's horrible, dude. He commands Bon Clay to turn into the king, and he shoots Koza in front of the civilians to make them angry towards the king and to make them want to clash against the royal army. And then, oh my gosh, the moment where you realize that the Straw Hats went through all that effort and work just to defuse the bomb, but to find out that it has a timer on and Crocodile knew about it just to play with their emotions, that was sickening, dude. He is a sick character. Very horrible person. And Vivi, her breakdown, oh my gosh, the voice actress, Caitlin Glass, holy moly, did a phenomenal job. I noticed the voice acting in this arc was an improvement over the previous arcs, although I must admit that some of the middle arc with the giants was a little bit hit or miss, but it is what it is. I think the moment which was probably the most satisfying moment was Vivi's voice finally being heard towards everyone and just screaming, stop fighting, and Nami just getting really upset and telling Zoro and Sanji to just start slacking around and to help Vivi while she's crying. It was heartbreaking, mate. I really do like how Nami was acting like the big sister for Vivi. In some moments she kept slapping her, knocking some sense into her, telling her to stop crying and all that. I think that's when Nami shined the most. I think Nami saw a little bit of her younger self in Vivi when Arlong overtook her hometown, and Nami also has some pretty damn heroic moments. I like how she and Usopp kind of bond quite a bit. Very strong bond in this arc, you know, they hang out a lot. I like the moment on the Going Merry where she and Usopp talk about them being the only two normal human beings on a boat filled with Deva fruit users. It made me realize that, you know what, I think Nami and Usopp are probably the characters I would relate to the most in this series, as they are the only ones without any extraordinary gifts or powers or whatnot. Going back to the visuals of the show, another thing I really liked was the portrayal of the Whisky Peak arc. I like when Zoro had to fight all those pirate hunters, and just the shading and the designs looked so gritty and intense, mate. Let's talk about the mixed aspect of the arc. Ace. It was cool seeing Ace in this arc. The first time we're seeing Ace for the first time in One Piece, but I felt like he didn't really play a key role in this arc. I thought he would be a part of the Alabasta Saga when I first watched it, but he just came to look for Blackbeard and he found out he wasn't here and he just left. I personally would have loved if Ace had stayed for the rest of this arc, helping Vivi out. Seeing more into his powers and his personality would have been cool. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the bad. Oh my gosh, I cannot stand Little Garden. Little Garden, that mini arc we had before the Dru Island arc, was so boring. I was struggling to stay awake in this arc. I don't know if it's because the battle against the Baroque works was a little bit underwhelming and really boring to watch, or if the animation and art style just wasn't up to par with the show before and after, but I don't know, dude, I just wasn't feeling this arc. I was just bored stiff with it. And just those two giants having to fight one another for years and years, I'm like, just thinking about that sounds like torture to me, mate. The villain of the Dru Island arc, Whirlpool, was so infuriating to watch. Oh my gosh, I was fed up with this guy. And just what a crappy king he was. I mean, my gosh, taking away all those doctors and considering that he was the one who killed Chopper's doctor dude. Not cool, mate, not cool. But overall, the Alabasta arc was a pretty entertaining arc to watch. I was more invested in the main Alabasta arc than the Little Garden, Whisky Peak and Dru Island arc, just because that's where the main meat and potatoes were at in terms of the writing and storytelling. Some things I found on my second watch through that I didn't notice before. I was surprised that Blackbeard made an appearance in Dru Island, and also J. Michael Tatum as Dalton was very distracting. All I could hear was Owen Smith from Attack on Titan. The Alabasta Saga gets an 8 out of 10 and it gets a B+. It's not as high as the previous arc because I think it was a little bit too long. Little Garden, oh my gosh, I could do without that arc. It was a drag to watch, mate. But let's hope that Skypiea on the second watch through is as good as my first this watch through. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys thought of this review of the Alabasta Saga. Do you like this saga? Do you hate it? What are your thoughts and opinions? Tell me. Like this video, subscribe for more anime reactions, reviews, comparisons, breakdowns, rankings and more. But thank you for watching, and as always, a boy Dru signing out.